DK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. In tonight's installment, we will be wrapping up, concluding the book study of The Magician, His Training and Work by W.E. Butler. Thus making us 66% finished with the trilogy. And hopefully you've learned a lot from this text thus far. So, prepare yourselves as we get into this information. Welcome. Dara Holland, peace. Alex Cuckoo, peace. Jay Baldhale, peace and greetings. Dub VT, peace. Apollo Soul, good evening. Alright, hope you are having a very pleasant new moon in Aquarius. Hopefully you're getting all your vitamins and minerals and all that good stuff. Al-Dicky peace. Alright, so let's get started then. Where we find ourselves is, of course, second to last chapter. This is going to be Talismanic Magic, followed by the Way of Magical Attainment and L'Envoi. We might do the rest of these as well. Alright, so let's begin with Talismanic Magic. Who here has ever worked with talismans? Alright, so, Chapter 20, Talismanic Magic. For most people, the word talisman conjures up a picture of lucky charms, oriental amulets, and such like devices, whilst Protestants of the narrower type would also include St. Christopher medallions, scapulars, rosaries, and crucifixes under the same heading. Interesting, have you ever thought of a crucifix as a talisman? But in point of fact, such things as lucky pigs or zodiacal birthstones are poles apart from St. Christopher medallions, etc. The whole idea behind them is different. Since magical work very often involves the use of talismans, it is necessary that we should consider their fashioning and understand the theory of their action. That they do act is a matter beyond dispute. For those who have carefully studied the subject, though all do not act, neither are those that do equally effective. There are two distinct lines of thought in connection with the use of talismans, and curiously enough, these two modes of approach are to be found in the two great sections of Christendom, the Roman Catholic Church and the East Orthodox Church. Natural family, peace. The first line of thought which we will consider is what may be termed the material line. In general terms, it may be stated as follows. Material substances are capable of being charged with certain supermaterial forces under certain conditions. Some substances are better than others for this class of work, as life is immanent in all things. Since all things are an expression of the one life, The substances of the material plane are the expressions or accidents of the true underlying reality or substance. So, again, all things are an expression of the one life. The substance of the material plane, all of it, is the expression of the underlying reality. Veronica Archaga, peace. Good evening. As living forces of all grades are ever flowing through the world and through all living things, it follows that these forces will be altered in intensity or nature by the action upon them of other living consciousnesses. As living forces of all grades are ever flowing through the world and through all living things, right? All living things have all manner of living forces flowing through them. It follows that these forces will be altered in intensity or nature by what? By the action upon them of other living consciousnesses. So it is held, an object which is to be used as a talisman must first be purified, right? So that explains why you've got to purify your tools before working with them. The mixed magnetisms it has picked up in its travels must be banished from it. Then, by will and thought, a fresh charge of living energy is poured into it. And this charge of energy is, in some mysterious way, stored in the material talisman. Anyone wearing the talisman will be affected by it and tuned into its own vibration, to use the occult cliche. They will tend to feel, think, and act in accordance with the intention of the maker of the talisman. This we may term the charge theory, since it regards the physical talisman as a storehouse of super physical power. Right? So you've heard of charging sigils and charging talismans and charging, objects, crystals, and all that other stuff. You've heard of that. So what he just explained is the concept behind why such a thing is done. Because all manifestations of the material plane are manifestations of the one living substance, right? So that would also explain that nothing is unholy or inherently evil by nature. What that means is that anything can be used. Anything can be used. And because all things are a manifestation of the one living substance, all manners of, you could say, energy, all manners of life force may or may not flow through the object that you choose to work with. So in order to tune it into your specific purpose, you go through the process of purifying it, of cleansing it, so that instead of this object that is a manifestation of the all, like all objects, instead of it expressing any kind of random energy or intent, it will express the specific intent that you've charged it with. Easy. Simple. Hakeem Lamidi, peace. John Ali, peace. Dara Holland, peace. Okay. Anna Molly, good to see you. Peace, peace. Oath, greetings. Framestar Films, peace. The other theory is that everything physical is linked by our concept of it with our minds, right? Now we've heard of this one too. The other theory is that everything physical is linked by our concept of it with our minds and with the universal mind in such a way that the relationship between the object perceived and the perceiver results in a normal mental relationship between the two. If now the object is perceived in the mind as being in other than the normal relationship with the perceiver, then it becomes a sacramental thing, an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace. Right? If the object is perceived in the mind as being in other than the normal relationship with the perceiver, in other words, you got a normal relationship with things, right? But then there are some things that you might hold in a higher esteem, like your favorite shirt, right? Or perhaps your lucky, crystal, whatever. There's some things that you have a normal mental relationship with, and then there are other things that you have an other than normal relationship with. Check? Easy. So he says, if the object perceived in the mind as being in other than the normal relationship with the perceiver, then it becomes a sacramental thing, right? Now, what does that mean, a sacramental thing? He says, an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace. Because you develop a mental relationship with an object that is more special than just a typical relationship, you automatically start to deify it. This is why symbols work. This is why sigils work. This is why talismans work. This is why crystals work. This is why all these different things work. Because you hold it in a higher esteem and a higher relationship. And it becomes an outward sign of your specific inward spiritual grace because of how you view it. Laya 369, peace and greetings. So, to effect this change of perception, the one making the talisman must lift up his heart and mind to the highest concept he can mentally reach, and there realize for a brief moment the particular virtue for which the talisman is being made. So remember what he said in previous chapters about bringing yourself, I think this was 2 reads ago, where he talked about bringing yourself to your highest conception of love, of wisdom, of power, and then finally uniting those three into its own super concept for you to realize, right? Remember when he talked about that before? Going into meditation on the essence of love, the essence of power, the essence of wisdom. Consider that. Consider what he said about the subconscious mind in this book. Put it all together. This is nothing different. It's just a different angle. But it's the same teaching. So he says, to effect this change of perception, the one making the talisman must lift up his heart and mind to the highest concept he can mentally reach, and there realize for a brief moment the particular virtue for which the talisman is being made. Right? So once you rise up to that highest level, once you rise up to the highest level that you can conceive of, your divinity, your deity, right? At that point is when you find the intention, or I should say, that's when you connect the intention to this object. Connect the intention. Find the essence of the intention, right? You would already have the intention. But at this point of meditation, you'd connect it with the divine essence of that intention. That boy got kicked fast as hell. All right. So, the talisman is now linked through his mind with the divine power it is being made to evoke. And because all minds are one at the deeper levels, remember the subconscious, right? All minds are one at the deeper levels. then the object is linked in this extra relationship with its maker, the one for whom it is made. And with that aspect of the divine mind, which is the root of the particular virtue which the talisman is designed to help. Right? So again, when you reach that high level of meditation, when you connect the talisman, the object, the symbol to its essence, right? When you connect its intention that you have assigned to its essence in that higher state, in that deeper state of meditation, once you do that, notice also that, right? That because all minds are one at the deeper levels, we've talked about this many times before, because of that, the object is now linked in this extra relationship with not just its maker, but also for who it is made for, and also with that aspect of the divine mind, which is the root of that particular virtue which the talisman is designed to help. There is another theory. Apollo Soul says, not this fool again. Yeah, he gave himself away with that last comment, didn't he? Gave himself away. Now I'm pretty sure I know who it is. There is another theory, quite a simple matter-of-fact idea, held by the Roman Church, or at least by some of its priests. We think it was the Roman Catholic writer, Monsignor R.H. Benson, who wrote, "When the Catholic Church blesses a bridge and invokes an angel to guard it, she confidently expects that God will send down such an angel." So in other words, when the Catholic Church blesses a bridge that has been built, right, and they do this ceremony to invoke an angel, it isn't merely just for the people to feel safe. They expect that God will send an angel to protect it. For you, it might just be show. Now, the magical theory actually covers all three of these theories, and it is a theory which has been checked and tested by clairvoyant seers over many years. The magical ritual regards the physical base of the talisman as being in its own way an expression of the immanent life. Right? So the physical base of the talisman that you're using, no matter what it is that you're using, it had to have been created out of Malkuth. Right? You're not going to create it out of anything else. Regardless if it's a statue or a unicorn pen or a book or a crystal, it's all made out of Malkuth, the kingdom. So the magical ritual regards the physical base of the talisman as being, in its own way, an expression of the immanent life, but as also being contaminated by what? Right? Now here's where we get to the purification. Also being contaminated by the mixed emanations from other lives of all grades of consciousness. Right? So, like his Catholic brother, he first exorcises the object. This is why you cleanse and you purify. You don't burn sage because you're scared. You don't do lesser banishing ritual to chase away the demon that you think is haunting you. No, you're purifying the space from all of the extra energies and intentions that have nothing to do with your ritual. You're purifying the space of the energies and intentions that have nothing to do with what you've been focused on. That's what banishing is all about. Because look, like he said, all these physical things, including yourself, just like Anamali says, yourself as well, your human body, all things are made out of Malkuth. It's the same substance, and it is holy, it's divine. It is the kingdom. Literally, it's the body of God. Prakriti. The only problem is, the only issue is, for our purposes, for our intents, it's contaminated by the mixed emanations from other lives. That's called karma, right? That's called karma. And of other grades of consciousness, down from the mineral level, the plant level, the animal level, the human level, and beyond. So when you purify an object, you're diluting, you're distilling, you're getting rid of all that extra stuff so that just your intention is what remains. Now, that is to say, he drives out of the object the heterogeneous magnetisms it has accumulated. This is why you purify your crystals every now and then, right? You definitely purify it when you get it. But after a couple of months, after a couple of years, after extensive use, you definitely want to do whatever cleansing ritual you understand how to do, whether that's leaving it under the full moon or the new moon, whether that's burying it in the ground overnight, right? Or if you just pass it through the fire and the incense and you do an incantation. Whatever works for you, make sure that it's done on a regular basis. Because crystals, being of the nature of the element of earth, they attract these magnetisms. They pull these magnetisms to themselves. Richard Tracy, peace, brother. Good to see you. All right, so then he recharges it with his own magnetism. And according to the work which it has to do, he links it with the appropriate grade of being on the inner levels. Look, if you have ever been confused about working with crystals, if you've ever been confused about working with sigils, if you've ever been uncertain or confused about charging up things like that and working with that type of magic, these 2 pages literally explained everything you need to know as far as the why and the how. These 2 pages alone, that's it. That's it. That's all you need. Everything else is extra and probably ineffective. Those who have an ear can hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. All right, so again, after he purifies it and cleanses it, then he recharges it with his own magnetism, and according to the work which it has to do, he links it with the appropriate grade of being on the inner levels. Again, like his Catholic brother, he invokes the help of an angel, and again, he is certain from the observations of seers through the ages that the angel invoked does manifest and is linked with the object. His concept of angels is, however, somewhat different from the conventional winged and robed figures of Christian art. Those who may have read the late Charles Williams' novel, The Place of the Lion, will perhaps understand more clearly than it can be expressed here the nature of those beings whom we term angels. In the Eastern religious systems, they are termed Devas, or shining ones, and they are held to be the subordinate intelligences behind all natural phenomena. There's a key right there. The very same thing that we call angels in the West are the exact same thing as the Devas in the East. Hear it. When you look over there and you see those Devas floating around in their vimanas and their spaceships, that's the same exact entity as what the West created with androgynous winged robed creatures coming down from heaven. Same things, not different. In the Eastern religious systems, they are termed Devas, or shining ones, and they are held to be the subordinate intelligences behind all natural phenomena. That is what spirits are. If you've taken my Spirit Summoning Master System class, we went through different levels of spirits. And ultimately what we have found is that all spirits, no matter what type they are the subordinate intelligences behind all natural phenomena. Many grades of these beings are recognized, ranging from the great solar angels down through countless levels to the infinitesimal consciousnesses behind the life of the cells of the physical body, and beyond to the inframicroscopic electronic systems of the atoms. Do you see that it's not just limited to what you think of as angels in the sky or what you think of as demons in hell? This goes all the way up and all the way down, because the planetary intelligences have been cataloged. There's intelligences of the organs of the body. There's intelligences of functions and behaviors of the body, right? There's intelligences behind your emotions. Why do we call on spirits to help us with love? Why do we call on spirits to help us with money? Because there's an intelligence behind those concepts, all the way up and all the way down. Notice that nowhere here did anybody say anything about good and evil. The intelligence is behind natural phenomena. See, good and evil is not a natural phenomena. That's a man-made concept. And it's subjective to the individual. So it can't be something eternal. All departments of life and activity in this planet and its attendant subjective spheres of consciousness are under the control of these beings who, in their turn, are, as it were, the living mirrors from which the plan of the Logos is reflected into this earth. In my former book, which we definitely read, which we went through, it was a whole lot shorter, Magic, Its Ritual, Power, and Purpose. He says, in my former book, in a chapter dealing with the magical images, the subject of the Deva lives was touched upon in connection with the technical advice of Commemoration. One was dealing there with the use of the living personality as a focusing point for the great magical images of the collective unconscious, and the Deva side of things was not stressed. Nevertheless, it is true that the very substance of our emotional and mental bodies is part of the being of the Devas, and all our emotions and thoughts are to some extent affected by the consciousnesses of these beings. In the Christian revelation, we learn of the 7 mighty spirits before the throne, right? Who's read the book of Revelations? Who's heard of these 7 mighty spirits? He says, in the Christian revelation, we learn of the 7 mighty spirits before the throne, and these mighty ones are the 7 archangels of Judaic Christian thought. Of these, the 4 best known are Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel. It will be noted that these 4 find their place in the banishing ritual of the Lesser Pentagram, and on the stations of the Tree of Life, all 7 are duly classified. Does anybody know the names of the other 3? Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Gabriel, Zadkiel, Zafkiel, and Kamael. Yeah. Each of them having a respective position over a planet, or a Sephirah, we should say. Kamael being Mars or Gibera. In the Roman Church, the saints are often called upon in this matter of blessing a particular object, and because the saint, both in his earth life and now in the spiritual realm, is a channel for a certain aspect of the divine power, so the Deva agents of that phase of divine energy work through that saint. Get it? Let me read that sentence back. So, in the Roman Church, the saints are often called upon in this manner of blessing a particular object. And because the saint, both in his earth life and now in the spiritual realm, is a channel for a certain aspect of divine power, so the Deva agents of that phase of divine energy work through that saint, even as the hosts of the mighty Raphael, the healer angel, works through all those who are called by profession or vocation to the ministry of healing. That's doctors, nurses, psychic, occult, and metaphysical healers alike. All of them are under the care of the Archangel of Healing. So from that, do you understand what people say, oh, this spirit rules this, or this angel rules that? It's not that they're sitting on a throne somewhere ruling something like you'd see a human king. No, that spirit represents a channel of energy, a whole channel of energy that a bunch of different emanations can fit under that umbrella. Remember earlier we talked about Raphael being connected to Tifereth, air, the air element. Tifereth being healing, balance, that Christ energy, right? Healing that comes through balance and harmony with the whole system, health, right? So because of that, Raphael rules over the healing aspect. The healer archangel works through all those who are called by profession or vocation to the ministry of healing. Doctors, nurses, psychic, occult, and metaphysical healers alike. All are under the care of the archangel of healing. Good stuff. So, when the magician is charging his talisman, he recites the names of those who in their earth days were the channels of the divine force with which he desires to charge the object. So when the magician is charging his talisman, he recites the names of those who in their earth days were the channels of the divine force with which he desires to charge the object. So look, what you call a saint or a holy person or even those gurus over in India, they've dedicated their lives to a specific entity. They've become channels for that entity into the physical plane. There are some people who are under a specific school of thought, and that school of thought has a specific entity presiding over it, and that school of thought becomes a channel for that type of energy. Framestar Films says flavors for differing tastes depending on the meal you wish to make. So, he recites the names of those who, in their earth days, were the channels of the divine force with which he desires to charge the object. His naming them with intention, right? His naming them with intention links him with their psychomagnetic trace in the astral light. Their exalted consciousnesses strike down with a momentary flash upon the consciousness of the magician, and the Deva life of the corresponding grade links up with the object in the appearance of the person so commemorated. MC Maestro, peace. MC Maestro, that's a great point. He says, if your definition of saint or ascended master is wide enough, you have a vast amount of human history to draw from. Working with a slave master to manage elementals. Exactly. Pal World. Pal World. That's a very accurate way of thinking about it. So again, his naming these saints with intention links him with their psychomagnetic trace in the astral light. This is why, guess what? When you do a lot of these rituals from these types of books, aren't there a bunch of God names that you repeat? Don't you say a bunch of Hebrew names that you have no idea what they mean? Yod, He, Vav, He, Eh, He, Ye, Shaddai, El Chai, all these names, right? This is a symbolic gesture, the same way that this magician recites the names of those who in their earth days were channels of divine force with which he desires to charge the object. That's the same thing that you're doing in those rituals of evocation and whatnot when you say the different aspects of God, the different God names. His naming them with intention, naming those names with intention, links him with their psychomagnetic trace in the astral light. Their exalted consciousnesses strike down with a momentary flash upon the consciousness of the magician, and the Deva life of the corresponding grade links up with the object in the appearance of the person so commemorated. Makes perfect sense, especially if you've already done this type of work before, right? And hell, I've been a person who has done this type of work and not really understood why there are certain aspects of the ritual. But since this has linked the object with the mind of this being, right? Since this has linked the object with the mind of this being, it has also linked it with the corresponding level of the collective unconscious, and through that, with the divine archetypes in the mind of the logos. So look, we understand that the collective unconscious has layers upon layers upon layers, just like how the Grand Canyon looks. You got the surface, and if you keep going down the side, you'll see that there are layers of different rocks, different sediment. When you look at the collective unconscious, you'll see that there are different layers of human, different layers of life expression, we'll put it that way. It starts at the surface with you. I've said this before dozens of times. Right underneath the surface of you is your childhood, and underneath that is your parents' bloodline, and underneath that is their parents, and you keep going down your family, the different generations of your ancestors, and then you keep going back until you reach the human race as a whole, and you keep going back. You keep going back until you touch something even deeper than human. So, like I said, there's different layers of this collective unconscious. Look, since you've linked the object, this ritual has linked the object with the mind of whatever entity you're working with, it has also linked that object with the corresponding level of the collective unconscious, whatever that may be. And through that, with the divine archetypes in the mind of the logos. It will be seen that a talisman may be made, which is simply a storage battery for some of the magnetic energy of the operator, or by his intention, a thought form charged with that energy may be linked with it. The appropriate Deva life may be evoked to bring such an energy to bear upon the user of the talisman, or the article having been purified by exorcism and charged with the operator's magnetism. The appropriate Deva life may be evoked through his deliberate linking up through the magnetic trace in the astral light with one who was and still is a channel for that power. Such a commemorative linking puts the operator in touch through this being with the divine archetypes. Wonderful. Wonderful. It will easily be seen which is the most effective of these methods, but naturally, it will easily be seen which is the most effective of these methods, but naturally they are all three used as conditions appear to indicate. You use them according to the situation. The material used for the making of a talisman varies according to the nature of the force concerned. The Tree of Life gives the metals, jewels, etc. appropriate. For example, a talisman for inspiring martial power would be made of iron or steel, since this is the metal associated with Mars, whilst one for the helping of emotional stress might be made of copper, the metal of Venus. Parchment is a good retainer of magnetism, so is olive oil. Water quickly absorbs it, but soon loses it. Clay absorbs and holds it for a long period. Silk and glass are both bad substances for talismans. In fact, silk is often used to wrap up a completed talisman in order to preserve its charge. MC Maestro, thank you for your donation. I appreciate you. So, of course, you know and you understand that the Tree of Life gives you all the correspondences. I'm talking about so many correspondences, like there's no excuse to not know what to do. You've got all these correspondences that show you how to tap in and or link up with whatever essence of energy you're working with. So for example, like he said, if you're trying to work with some type of emotional healing, right? If you're trying to deal or help with emotional stress, you'd work with Venus, which is Netzach. Green, copper is the metal. You've got tarot cards associated with it. You've got, like I mentioned, a different planet, different crystals, different smells. There's books written on all the different types of correspondences that you can utilize to put something together, right? You can put together something for all 5 of your senses. You've got something to look at, something to smell, something to taste, right? Some texture to feel, etc., etc. He got blocked immediately. Nice. I love my moderators. Thank you all so much. It seems that we've entered a new era, and you guys have been called to go to war on the front lines. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. And by the way, my friends, if you feel so inclined and you're able to, please donate to the New Computer Fund. I've set my Cash App right here. I've almost got my stuff back together so I can get back to making videos and get this cyclomancy class started. But a little help does go a long way. So we were talking about talismans, the different types of metals, the different types of materials that they can be made of, what works best and what doesn't work best. I know Anamali said that she was going to be working on talismans tonight, made of clay. And as he says here, clay absorbs and holds this intention, this magnetism, for a long period. So that would actually be a great avenue. All right, this will always be done for you without any charge being made. For the true magician is bound to exact no fee for such work. In the last resort, remember the talisman is but a device to help you to full activity along its particular line. There should come a time when you can cheerfully discard it, since it will have served its purpose. Each talisman is personal to the one for whom it was made, and cannot therefore be given to someone else suffering from a similar trouble. The diagnosis may be quite different. This is very important, since secondhand talismans do appear now and again, right? And their use can cause much trouble. When in doubt, cast it out is a good maxim when dealing with such a thing. But where this for any reason not possible, the talisman concerned should be taken to a competent magician to be demagnetized, or if the owner has the necessary knowledge, he may do this himself. When once the talisman has been charged, it is ipso facto linked with the one who has charged it, and it is necessary to break this psychic link if the operator does not wish to be so linked. This is done by using a locking prayer, by breaking in the mind the silvery thread which is visualized as the link between the operator and the talisman. And you've heard of this concept before when it comes to astral projection and astral viewing. You'll see that silver thread connected from the physical body to the astral body. Well, he just gave us a clue. The same thing is happening to the entities that you create, to the sigils and the talismans that you send out. I'll read that again. When once a talisman has been charged, it is ipso facto linked with the one who has charged it. And it is necessary to break this psychic link if the operator does not wish to be so linked. I can break these cuffs. You can't break those cuffs. This is done by using a locking prayer and by breaking in the mind the silvery thread which is visualized as the link between the operator and the talisman. When a talisman has to be destroyed, it is first demagnetized. For various occult reasons, this is important. A very important aspect of this technique of charging or magnetizing physical objects is the consecration of objects and buildings to be centers of radiation of spiritual forces. The writer recently attended the dedication service of a rebuilt Presbyterian Congregational United Church building and was amused to hear the minister who dedicated it say, in his sermon, "We of the Reformed tradition know that in this dedication we have performed no magical action, have made no change in this building." As a matter of psychic fact, the writer had observed clairvoyantly a very decided change in the psychic atmosphere therein. Interesting. All right, so chapter 21. The way of magical attainment. The way of magical attainment. Peace, Merrick C. Kevin Wise, peace, greetings. Garrett Patterson, welcome, welcome. MC Marshall says, so Trav, are you saying that entire cities built last century by Freemasons actually put out a spiritual current on a large scale? I think that's a pretty grand idea. I mean, who's to say that a city cannot be a talisman, right? Who's to say that a city cannot be a talisman or a sigil? In fact, aren't there all these scared people making these videos about how, oh, Washington, D.C. has a pentagram in its street layout? Oh my God, right? Who's to say an entire city or a business structure, right? From the CEO down to the frontline worker. Who's to say that all these things cannot be talismans? MC Maestro says a country if we think bigger. Absolutely. Absolutely. Or maybe the way that they show you the diagram of the solar system, or the way that they show you or display to you an atom. Because really, molecules and atoms, hell, and we'll even assume that planets don't look the way that they're displayed to us. When they're displayed to us, it's a graphic representation, and they tell you that immediately. This is a computer-generated representation of what we think it looks like. So, it's a piece of art. It's something that somebody created. We don't know what those things look like. We cannot see an atom. We can't see whole planets. We can't even see this planet. I've never seen a picture of this planet or any other planet, not a real picture. I've seen computer-generated images. In other words, these are creations that can have an intention and a purpose, right? Cool stuff. All right, let's keep going. Now we're going to talk about the way of magical attainment, chapter 21. Block Monster says you can see atoms in a microscope. Yes, you can. And I promise they don't look like the computer-generated images. In fact, what you might see is a vague cloud, a shape maybe. As they said, it doesn't look like those circles in line, because those circles are the assumed positions. They're moving so fast, even to the point where they say that it's a, what do they call it? A probability, a potentiality. They even have rules for this kind of thing. You can either know the speed that it's going, or you can know the position, but you can't know both. So in other words, what is drawn and what is illustrated is not how they actually look. And it's definitely not what you see when you look under a microscope. Oh yeah. Kevros, SS God, peace. Hazard Pie, peace and greetings. Thank you for your donation. Good morning. Hot and ready, fresh off the press. Chapter 21, The Way of Magical Attainment. It is now time to look back upon that which we have written in this book and give the reader some instruction in the sequence of training in the magical art. It will have been noticed that this training is based entirely upon the personality of the would-be magician, and this carries with it many important implications. Many important implications. In the early stages of our magical training, our motives are usually mixed. But from the beginning, one motive must be present in our minds if we wish to safely tread this magical path. This motive we have already referred to. It is the desire to know in order to serve. The desire to know in order to serve. If that becomes your mantra, not lack or want for anything. Because what's wrapped up in that phrase is, you become a vessel for the Most High to continue the process of enlightenment to the people who are looking for it. The desire to know in order to serve. Why do you want to know this information? To be able to help somebody, to be able to serve. To serve who? To serve what? Specifically, that will depend on your journey, but we refer back to the collective unconscious. There's only a few people who can be served by spiritual information. Now, everyone can be served from the effects, but somewhere on those layers of the collective unconscious, there's a few people who are starting to expand and awaken and prepare themselves for the next level. With there being so few of us, that's why it's so important to desire to know in order to serve. Because where the hell else are we going to go to find correct information, proper information? It might seem like spirituality is a trend on the internet. It's very popular right now, but I don't think I'd call that spirituality. They might talk about spiritual things, but it's regular people talking about regular stuff with new words. Anyways, the motive we have already referred to. It is the desire to know in order to serve, and it must be the primary motive of our interest in magic. Other motives, such as intellectual curiosity, emotional appeal, or aesthetic appreciation, may coexist with this primary desire, and may, each in their own way, be catered for. But this motive of service must always come first. It is important to realize that the service of the magician to his fellow men takes two definite forms. It may and does help them by what the magician does, but also and always they are helped by what he is. Now we can go back to that last chapter, because what he is a channel for a divine force. For the human race is one in its deeper levels, right? We talked about that. This is important to understand. The human race is one in its deeper levels. And when one man begins to think and work in a certain way, he affects the whole of the group soul of the race to which he belongs. it is not primarily necessary that he should teach others either publicly or privately, though of course he usually does. Says, i.e. Robert Kiyosaki. Those secret occultists. Neither is it essential that he should organize bodies pledged to certain political, religious, or social problems, though, once again, many do so work by forming such bodies. But the simple fact that he is what he is sufficient to influence the deeper mind of the race, and so affect all those myriad individuals whose minds make up that racial mind. So through wisdom does the magician build his house of life, his personality anew, and by understanding, it is established. That's great. You don't have to build a Black Lives Matter. You don't have to build a movement. You don't have to set a group together. Hell, you don't even have to teach, right? All you have to do is study this stuff, right? With the desire to know in order to serve, and practice this stuff with the desire to know in order to serve, and you will find yourself in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing in the right way. See, we call it synchronicity. We think we want to learn some magic so we can manifest some synchronicity stuff. But the synchronicity is serving us a much higher purpose. You might have thought that somebody helped you, but you probably helped them way more, because you probably did something for them on such a deep level that it may have altered the direction of their life a little bit. It will be seen later how this is brought about. At the moment, we are still stressing this essential point that the primary service which the magician renders to his fellows is that he becomes a stable center through which the hierarchies of light may lift up humanity. In conversation with a fellow priest, the present writer was told that the difference between the magician and the priest was that in the one instance, powers were exercised by the magician, whilst in the other, power was exercised through the priest. By and through. I would even say invocation and evocation. But is this really wrong page, or right page, 152. But this is really a false antithesis. This is really a false antithesis. Both the priest and the magician do certain things. And through both of them, power is made manifest. The real difference lies elsewhere and does not enter into our present discussion. It is sufficient to say here that the magician affects others both by that which he does and by that which he is. Now, that which he does is very important, for it is building up into his personality certain magical reaction habits, right? What you do as a magician is very important, for it builds up into your personality certain magical reaction habits. And it is these which in the end are far more important than the outward ceremonial and ritual of the magical act, right? So the ceremony, the ritual, the candle and the music and the actual ritual itself, that's important, but not as important as getting into the routine of actually doing the work. For the adept magician, though he may use the age-old ceremonies, he does not depend upon them. He does not depend upon them. The observances, which were the outward visible symbols of inner states of emotion, that's what the ritual is, by the way. The observances, which were the outward visible symbols of inner states of emotion, mind and spirit have, through the training he has undergone, been withdrawn into and made components of his inner consciousness. Let me say that again. The observances, which were the outward visible symbols of inner states of emotion, mind, and spirit, have, through the training he's undergone, been withdrawn into and made components of his inner consciousness. So, the ritualized ceremony that you perform, which is in actuality an outward visible symbol of your emotions, of your thoughts, of your spirit, right? That's what the ritual is. It's an outward symbol of what you've got going on inside, or what you want to be going on inside. It's an outward symbol of that. Now, through this training of understanding exactly what you're doing, now those symbols become withdrawn and made components of the inner consciousness, the subconscious mind. Then the preparation of the place is affected within the ring pass not. Do we remember what that phrase refers to? You can think about the tree of life. Somebody mentioned an atom before, and the way that diagram looks. Been withdrawn into and made components of his inner consciousness. Then the preparation of the place is affected within the ring pass not, which is basically a barrier that you've created due to your ritual. The limiting boundary of his own aura. The angel of the operation is invoked therein, and the mystical temple is built where? In his mental sphere. Inner temple. No Face Divination says cosmic doctrine chaos. Absolutely. Absolutely. And see how good it is to continue to go over this information over time, because it starts to mean a little bit more the more that you go. It's as if the tree of life is a ritual in itself, and the Ein Sof R is the protective aura that encloses the space for this experiment to be performed within. Oh boy. Adam Davis says, the desire to know and serve is how I ended up being a teacher at a trades high school this year. The principal walked up to me in the grocery store and explained how I should come work for him. Awesome. Anna Molly says, like you said the other night, the small mundane things are the most subconscious, so they have the most power. Absolutely. Framestar says, kindling the flames from the sparks of Kether cast from the anvils of Ein Sof. Right. The ring pass not. Richard Tracy says, desire to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. The 4 pillars of Gardnerian practice. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so the limiting boundary of his own aura, the angel of the operation is invoked inside, and the mystical temple is built in his mental sphere, the inner temple. Then into this temple, not made with hands, isn't that what the Bible says? The temple not made with hands. Well, what else is it going to be built with, right? Then into this temple not made with hands, there descends the divine Shekinah, the glory of the eternal, and she abides over the seat of justice between the cherubim and the Holy of Holies of the magician's heart. That's what those rituals were talking about in the Old Testament. That's what those rituals were talking about in the Old Testament. They were teaching you how to put together a ceremony properly. Not for everybody, of course, because Everybody isn't evolved to a certain point to be able to do this kind of stuff. But for those who are here to do work, there has always been clues and teaching left behind to help you get from where you are to where you're trying to go. Always. No Face Divination says, damn, Shekinah is my sister's name. That's a powerful name. That's another name for the feminine aspect of God. That's another name for the expression of God. That's another name for Shakti, basically. Same thing. The glory, the manifestation of God. That's what Shekinah means. Shekinah glory. Long ago it was said by a great mystic who wrote under the name of Angelus Silesius. Though Christ 1,000 times in Bethlehem be born, and not within thy heart, thou art all forlorn. The cross on Calvary thou lookest to in vain, except within thy heart it be set up again. Peace, MC Maestro. Merrick C, is that also Sophia? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it will be said, and by the way, look what it says here. Even though Christ might be born 1,000 times in Bethlehem, if Christ isn't born in your heart, then you miss the point, right? The cross, looking at the cross, going to church, and all these different symbols, doing all that means nothing unless you're able to look inside of your heart and see this stuff, right? It's not about going to the physical church and listening to some dude sit up there and talk about what his family did over the summer. It's about making that connection inside of yourself. It doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what practice, it doesn't matter any of that stuff. What matters is that you integrate it, you awaken it inside of yourself. Because if it's not inside of you, it's external. It's not a part of you. Or I should say, you don't recognize that it is a part of you. You haven't met God. You haven't seen God. So you can talk about it all you want, but unless God is in your heart, it's foreign to you. Lasange Decote, peace. Okay, but it will be said, this is mysticism. What has that to do with magic? The answer is that in the high reaches of both magic and mysticism, we come to a common ground. The light within, which lighteth every man, the indwelling spirit, our true self. Both magic and mysticism here find their true raison d'etre. And because of this, all the great religions of the world combine in varying proportions these two paths to the eternal. We have stressed this truly religious nature of magic in order to make quite clear to the beginner that although in the beginning his interest in magic may be simply motivated by intellectual curiosity or emotional appeal against the background of his desire to serve humanity, yet as he progresses, he will find himself irresistibly brought to a point where the truly religious nature of his chosen path becomes clear. In the beginning, however, it is important that he is trained to perform the external ceremonies in such a way that, on their own plane, they are as perfect as it is possible to make them. Those who have read magical fiction will no doubt have read the dire results following upon an ill-drawn pentagram or the wrong pronunciation of a name. Uh-oh, I didn't close the pentagram. Now all hell has broken loose. Though the occult reasons for such unfortunate happenings are cogent enough. The real point at issue is that the outward ceremony should be perfect on its own plane. In other words, the outward ceremony, what plane is the outward ceremony happening on? It's happening on the physical plane, right? It should be perfect on the physical plane. This is what the training is about. This is what the practice is about. He says that it is important that he is trained to perform the external ceremonies in such a way that on their own plane, they are as perfect as it is possible to make them, right? As perfect as possible. In the yoga systems of the East, there are three main paths: Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Gnani Yoga. The paths of power, love, and wisdom, respectively, right? And we read a wonderful book on Gnana Yoga. By the way, notice what he just did there: power, love, and wisdom. A few chapters ago, he talked about how in order to create that connection with your higher self, you've got to do specific rituals on the essence of power, of love, and wisdom. And look at where these words, look at where he's getting this from. Power, Raj Yoga; love, Bhakti Yoga; wisdom, Jnana Yoga. Look at how he just threw that in there. But there are secondary preparatory yogas such as Hatha Yoga. That's the yoga for the body, that's the stretching and everything, the poses. Which prepare the aspirant in readiness for the time when he will commence to tread his chosen path. It's probably time to plug this battery in, or else we'll be having a whole nother live stream after this. So, in the magical act, there is a definite path of preparation, and part of this is devoted to the training of the personality on the physical plane and through the physical body. And this is begun by the physical plane ceremonial training. How many people realize that the primordial language of mime still speaks through our subconscious actions, gestures, mannerisms, etc., and is so communicated to those who are with us? But this is a very real factor in ceremonial. In fact, it has been said that a magical rite could be celebrated without ritual words if the signs appropriate are used. And this is no idle statement, as the present writer has become aware. So our ceremonial actions must be correctly carried out, and every gesture, every movement be done in such a way that the whole ceremony, as the Roman Catholic writer R.H. Benson once said, is offered as a jewel, perfect of its type. He was referring to Catholic ceremonial, but the principle applies to all magical ceremony work. The spells of woven paces and waving hands is not likely to be 100% efficient if, at the same time, by our subconscious physical gestures, we are asserting the opposite point of view. This ties into NLP stuff as well, as far as how your physical body language has definite meaning to the subconscious mind. So the magician to be must practice correct movement, poise, and balance of the body. This is not easy, particularly when he is working alone, but it is something which must be done. Along this line of physical training lies also the care of the physical body. Always the aim should be to make the body the willing steed of the spirit. False asceticism has no place here. If things are eschewed, it is simply in obedience to if this, then not that. Sometimes body language speaks louder than words, right? Hazard Pi says, I am always looking at people's body language. Yeah, the body language tells the truth. It's very difficult to lie with your body language. So it behooves you to understand how to read that. It's very difficult to lie with your body language. It takes an expanded capacity of awareness to not only manage your words and listen to what the other person's saying, right, and think about what to say next, and manage how your hands, your arms, your eyes, your body, it takes an expanded level of awareness to be able to manage all those different functions of the self. Most people don't have that capacity. Like, it literally takes practice. This is what meditation is about, right? So if you've never meditated, chances are you probably can't control your body language, let alone control your thoughts or the words that you're about to say in reaction to how someone made you feel, right? Certain physical habits may have to be deleted for the time in order that certain work may be done, but the magical bow must not always be kept taut. There's deep wisdom in the story of the devotee who sought to speak with St. John and found him playing with a tame partridge. As he gazed with a certain scorn at the apostle's occupation, the venerable man inquired of him whether, being a soldier, he always kept his bow tight strung. So it is with the physical. In magical work, we require a well-trained, well-adjusted, and harmoniously balanced physical body, and this we shall not obtain by any excessive or false asceticism. So the first exercises in the magical training are concerned with willed relaxation of the body and the control of the breath. These are essential, basic exercises. Essential, basic. Here, it is necessary to reiterate that all the work which the aspirant may undertake at a later date depends entirely, apart, of course, from any exceptional natural magical ability, depends entirely upon the faithful practice of these basic exercises. This is a point of which we often lose sight. The early exercises are regarded as dull routine, which can be done perfunctorily and then forgotten as the beginner moves on to more exciting work. In point of fact, these exercises provide the essential foundation upon which all else must ultimately depend. To omit them is as though one essayed the heights of the higher mathematics without any training in simple arithmetic. We see that a lot, don't we? How do I open my third eye? How do I jump to my crown chakra when absolutely no work has been done on the root, right? How do I swim in the clip off, but I don't know anything else about the rest of the tree, right? Trying to essay heights of higher mathematics without training in simple arithmetic. And we all do that. He says this is a point of which we often lose sight. We all fall for this type of thing, where we do a lot of the basic work, we think that we master it, and we don't do it anymore. See, it's building a foundation. And a foundation has to be checked, right? Because over time, what is laid upon that foundation, what is stacked on top of that foundation, can cause pressure. It can cause a shifting weight. There was one time where I was looking to buy a house. Long story short, it looked great for a super great price. But after having somebody come look at it, they found a crack in the foundation. That's a hell no. Because that can cause the entire house to fall apart at any random time. So when it comes to our foundation, sure, we don't do a lot of the basic stuff we used to do when we first started. Oh, but it's a great idea to make sure that we revisit the foundation. Jay Baldhale says, a friend of mine paid a psychic surgeon to open his third eye, and he's losing his damn mind. Man, I mean, I get it, but you hear something exciting on TikTok, and then you rush to whatever sounds convincing enough, and geez Louise. That's like when all these people on Facebook were trying to melt their chakras. Hazard Pie says, I like listening to my heart through a stethoscope to speed or slow my heartbeat with my mind. It's fun. That's interesting. I've never heard of that before, but now I want to try it. Okay, so let's go back because this is important, right? Look at what he says here. Look what he's talking about. What foundation am I talking about? What foundation? Specifically, two things. Check this out. So it is with the physical. In magical work, we require a well-trained, well-adjusted, and harmoniously balanced physical body. And this we shall not obtain by any excessive or false asceticism. You're not going to obtain it by what you wear and what you post on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or Facebook. Right? So the first exercises in the magical training are concerned with the willed relaxation of the body and the control of the breath. That's it. You see this here, and you also see this in Dharana Darshan. You see this in Initiation into Hermetics. You see this in Libra Null and Psychonaut. You see this in all these books that teach you how to begin the path. It's the willed relaxation of the body, relaxing your body on purpose, and controlling your breath. That's the foundation that must be revisited. It doesn't sound very magical. It doesn't sound very spiritual until you realize that one of the root words for spirit comes from the breath. So these are essential basic exercises. Here it is necessary to reiterate that all the work which the aspirant, by the way, that even has a root word in breath, the aspirant may undertake at a later date depends entirely. Let me say that again. Here it is necessary to reiterate that all the work which the aspirant may take at a later date depends entirely upon the faithful practice of these basic exercises. Except, of course, if you've got natural magic ability, then you might be able to ease up. This is a point of which we often lose sight. The early exercises are regarded as dull routine, which can be done perfunctorily and then forgotten as the beginner moves on to more exciting work. In point of fact, these exercises provide the essential foundation upon which all else must ultimately depend. To omit them is as though one essayed the heights of the higher mathematics without any training in simple arithmetic. So to stop doing your breathing exercises and to stop practicing the relaxation of your body, to give that up, yet continue to try to do some more advanced magical techniques, that's the same thing as you trying to understand calculus and trigonometry and all this other stuff without any training in addition, subtraction, multiplication. Because as you can see, the higher math is built upon different formulas of lower math. Just like the higher magic is built upon different formulas of lower magic. how do you stop amplifying your psychic abilities to everybody around you? Well, you can go into complete isolation. But if you're not cut out for that life, then the next step would be to work on, cleanse, purify what it is that is being amplified. Because if you're getting this sense and this feeling that your psychic ability, your mind is stretching into all these other different people, then it's probably best for you to make sure that you've got nothing to hide, nothing that you're ashamed of, right? Because what you send out really aren't necessarily words, unless you're, well trained. What you actually send out is feelings. When it comes to psychic ability, especially what you're describing right here, you're sending out feelings and emotions. So you can try to force something natural to stop, or you can learn to master it, which involves mastering the self, ensuring that there is nothing that you have that gives you feelings of guilt, anger, sadness, because if that's what you're projecting to people, it's going to come back to you. It's going to come back. It's going to manifest through them in whatever way that they can, express it best. Okay, all right. Eve Jean, peace and greetings. But yeah, you can always isolate yourself, hide away, run from the world, or at least tone it down a bit, right? It comes to a point in the spiritual path when you got to kind of cut out some of the stuff you used to do, because it's just not the same anymore. But anyways, when the aspirant comes to the use of the signs and words of power, it is usually important that he should not only make the signs and speak the words correctly, but also that he should have carried out a definite series of meditations upon the inner meaning of those signs and words. This meditation should not be a purely intellectual approach, but should include the emotional content also. So the study, or are you going to utilize mantra and yantra, sigils, and things of that nature? Not only do you want to make sure that you're using them correctly, you're drawing them correctly, and you're speaking them correctly, but also that you've meditated on these things. So that you can get to the inner meaning of these symbols, of these sigils, of these mantras, the inner meaning of them. And that meditation isn't purely intellectual, but also emotional. You guys are great. The boss don't even get a chance. But this steady emotional and mental work, by this steady emotional and mental work, the signs and words become effective in the hands of the aspirant. Here, the training of the visual and audible imagination finds its place. The training of the visual imagination and the audible imagination. Check that out. Those are going to be your main tools. The main tools. So by the steady emotional and mental work, shadow work, the signs and the words become effective in the hands of the aspirant. Now you can use those mantras. Now you can use those sigils. Now you can use these things. Once you've meditated on them and connected with their inner meaning. Here the training of the visual and audible imagination finds its place. But it must be remembered that all such meditative training must be coordinated, and this is best done by having some general plan into which all the symbols fit. and which displays their various interrelationships. That's why the Tree of Life is so effective, because all the symbols there fit together. They are all interrelated to each other. Such ground plans are, in the East, termed mandalas. And the standard and ideal mandala for the Western student is the mighty glyph of the universe and the soul of man, the Tree of Life of the Kabbalah. Boom. Uh-oh. Let's try this one. Aquarius New Moon Sound Ceremony. The doctrine of the astral light must be carefully studied, and for the time, at all events, it must be accepted as a working theory. Right? So he's talking about the astral light, which he's mentioned here many times. We can also compare this to the etheric plane. He says the doctrine of the astral light must be carefully studied, and for the time, at all events, it must be accepted as a working theory. Right? Later experience will prove its truth and validity. In other words, if you haven't worked with the astral plane, if you haven't worked with the etheric plane, if you don't have first-hand experience with it, just take it as a theory. Take the astral plane and the etheric plane as a theory. Then, as you do your work, you'll start to understand, right? Because there's certain things that can't be just given to you, just taught. There are certain things that you have to experience yourself. You can be led there, but you have to be experiencing it yourself. One of those things is the etheric plane and the astral plane. A lot of people talk about it, and even more people don't understand what that's all about. So, the doctrine of the astral light must be carefully studied, and for the time, at all events, it must be accepted as a working theory. Later experience will prove its truth and validity, but successful magical results are unlikely if the work is done in the spirit of the atheist who is reported to have prayed, "Lord, if there is a Lord, save my soul if I have a soul." Right? What kind of results can you expect if that's your attitude? God, if there is a God, please save my soul if I have a soul. Your friend Atins asks, can I ask the name of the first soundtrack, please? Yeah, leave a comment on this video so I can find it later. Leave a comment and then I'll post it. And you can listen to it. A clear idea of the nature of the magical egregor or group form should be built up in the mind in order that the aspirant may understand what part he plays in the whole complex scheme, and thereby may know how closely he is guided and aided in his chosen work. Trigger finger. Trigger finger. I love it. Yeah, so egregor, right? Egregor, we've heard of this before. The group form, the group mind. It's an entity that you create or is created when a collective gets together. A clear idea of the nature of the magical egregor or group form should be built up in the mind in order that the aspirant may understand what part he plays in the whole complex scheme. And thereby may know how closely he is guided and aided in his chosen work. Returning now to the physical plane, the aspirant should begin to collect together his magical impedimenta. Whoa, there's a new word for the day. Impedimenta, Impedimenta. Given the context, I can see what it might mean, but I don't think I've heard that word before. So yeah, returning back to the physical plane, the aspirant should begin to collect together his magical impedimenta, his robes, wand, ring, etc., and the furnishings of his magical oratory. Here, the general rule is that he should make his own things and not buy them ready-made. Of course, with regard to certain things, this is not possible, but wherever it can be done, it is a great help to the magician, since by making such things himself, the symbolic values attached to them are firmly fixed in the mind, and the whole becomes, as it were, an extension of his own personality. So that's why it's so important to, if you can, create your own magical tools. Because remember before, he talked about talismans, right? And how talismans can be any physical thing, because all physical things are the same thing, right? But the various essences that might be involved with them need to be purged, need to be purified, right? Need to be neutralized so that magical work can be done. So Anamali says, impedimenta, equipment for an activity or expedition, especially when considered as bulky or an encumbrance. Okay, so the equipment. Nice. King Divine Fire, peace. He says, is this by Phil Cooper? No, it is not. It is by W.E. Butler. W.E. Butler. All right, so that's the impedimenta. And these objects are representatives of extensions of your own personality, extensions of the magician, the magus themselves. Here, a word of warning is indicated. Whatever is thus made for the magical work must be made as perfectly as possible within the range of the maker's skill. Nothing should be slipshod in construction. Nothing should be jimmy-rigged. Neither should it be some commonplace article disguised, for the inevitable association links it with its usual uses and will prevent it from being of service. Now, that does entirely depend on the practitioner themselves. For example, if you're supposed to have a dagger or a knife that's specifically for ritual, right? You can see it in your imagination with a nice hilt with some sigils carved on it, and it's all fancy, and the blade is short and shiny, and really it's used for ritual purposes. But say you can't get one and you just go in the kitchen and grab a steak knife. Now, if you've got a strong enough imagination, that'll be perfectly fine. But for the average person, that will kind of hurt the ritual, because when you look at that, you're gonna know damn well that's a steak knife and you used it a couple days ago. So what he's saying is that nothing should be slipshod or just slapped together, thrown together. Neither should it be some commonplace article disguised, for the inevitable association links with it its usual uses, and that'll prevent it from being of service. I was able to do that just fine, because at the time of my early days, I didn't really have a choice to buy anything fancy. So I used stuff that I had, but the flip side is I only used it for my rituals. I didn't go back and use it for something else. So like I said, that part depends on the practitioner from my experience. Jalen Smith says, I have a sword that my grandfather had that I use and keep under my bed. It's always in my dream with me when I need it. Awesome, awesome. And you've linked it to a specific intent, right? This is what we talked about on the previous chapter about talismans. You've connected it with something. You've even used your grandfather as a channel for that something. That's great. Eugene says, I've been working with my husband's grandfather for the past few days. He told me I should be celebrating. His nickname is TJ. Yeah, you should be celebrating. That's awesome. I think quite a few of us should be celebrating. We kind of got through the worst of it. Thank God. If a number of broom handles be used to make a tall candlestick, they should be bought for the purpose and so combined that they cease to have their individual character as broom handles anymore. All such things should also be dedicated to the work in which they will be used. A simplicity and dignity of both the oratory and the magical appurtenances must be ideal. A room cluttered up by a host of symbolic bits and pieces can effectively bring to naught the magical work essayed therein. All the symbols, etc., must relate directly to the central idea of the work being done. This is a clue right here for your magical space. Even if it's a corner in your room or if it's in your closet or in a drawer, here's a clue here. A room cluttered up by a host of symbolic bits and pieces. In other words, a bunch of random stuff, right? This might be a sigil for this or a symbol for that. That might all be magical tools or magical symbols. But it can get very distracting, right? It can get distracting. And here's what he's saying here. Those bits and pieces can bring to nothing your magical work. All the symbols that you're using, all the symbols in your space, must relate directly to the central idea of the work being done. The central idea. And if you don't have a central idea, maybe it's time to start finding out what that is. Eugene says the message he wants us to know is we've reached stability in our abilities. Stability in our ability. I like that. I like that. Thank you, Eugene. Now comes the key work of the magical act, that which we have dealt with in section 3, the magical keys. Upon the faithful performance of this work, all else depends. First of all, the magical personality must be built. We learned about that previously. The magical personality must be built, using for this work the power gained by the previous visual and audible exercises. All right? Remember, the magical personality involves with meditating on the essence of power, wisdom, love, and combining those three essences into one, the ultimate personality. Without doing that, there's not going to be a true source to draw from. Before you can work with anything, whether this is in daily life or magical, spiritual, whatever, you have to have a concept of it first. If you don't have a concept of it, you literally can't even fathom it. You can't work with it. This book has given you an explicit way on how to do that. So that's the magical personality. He says, first of all, the magical personality must be built, using for this work the power gained by the previous visual and audible exercises. Then the exercises of the interwoven light must be commenced, and the training of the body of light put in hand. At the same time, the cultivation of the basic magnetic energies should enable the aspirant to begin certain simple talismanic work. So the cultivation of basic magnetic energies, right? This is the natural result. This is the natural result of these breathing exercises, of being able to keep your body still at will, right? The flashing colors should now be carefully examined, carefully experimented with, until the requisite subconscious trick of consciousness shift is obtained at will. So there is a process called the flashing colors. The flashing colors. And this involves gazing at, meditating on the tattvas, the Eastern Vedic symbols of the elements. And in doing so, right, you look at the specific color scheme, and then you look at the blank wall, and you'll notice that the inverted colors have appeared, and you're able to project yourself into those colors. And what you're actually training yourself to do, this is the whole purpose of that. You're learning the art of consciousness shift at will, going into a specific type of trance at will. That's what that exercise is all about. As the aspirant gains in proficiency, he may begin to experiment in various ways with his newly developed magical power, remembering always that it must not be used against the will of those concerned, nor for any other purpose than service. Apart from any experiments along these various lines, the aspirant should steadily work the ritual designed to bring him into conscious contact with his own higher self, the holy guardian angel of the Kabbalistic teaching. So there it is right there. The higher self is the holy guardian angel that has been spoken about. Evo 7, peace, peace. The holy guardian angel of Kabbalistic teaching. This should be the primary aim of all his magical work. Listen to that. Listen to that. Listen and understand this. This should be the primary aim of all his magical work. Not manifesting stuff. Not getting revenge on somebody. The primary aim of all magical work is the connection with the higher self, the holy guardian angel. Please understand that. Please understand that. Even if you get into this for the wrong reasons, if you stick around long enough, you're still going to be led to the goal. Trust me, I would know. This should be the primary aim of all his magical work, and he cannot be an adeptus minor in the true sense until this essential contact has taken place. This alone should be the primary motive, the ever-present ideal, and the continually repeated magical work should be its ceremonial embodiment. Check that out. All other magical work, interesting and instructive though it may be, all other magical work, interesting and instructive though it may be, and of definite training value to the aspirant, can become, if duly concentrated upon, a diversion from the path of true magic. In the great mystical traditions to be found in Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity alike, preoccupation with secondary results is condemned, often in harsh terms. But the instinct is sound. Such things can divert us from our true aim, though at the same time, they can assist us there too. The present writer believes from his own experiences in this realm that many of the structures of the Buddhist and Catholic mystics are somewhat too severe, and that there is a via media, a way between undue absorption in the lesser magic and the occult and psychic powers on the one hand, and the high austere flights of the soul as practiced by such mystics as St. John of the Cross on the other. So what he's saying is that the great mystical traditions to be found in Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity are often very strict. And that strictness can divert us from the true aim, right? Because we're so focused now on the rules to follow as opposed to the end result. What he's saying is that there's possibly another way to where you won't get so absorbed in the lesser aspects and the results of those lesser aspects, and you can still be on the path to making that higher self connection. The middle way has its virtues, and this has been sufficiently indicated therein. Okay, so in other words, he's talking about left-hand path, right-hand path, now middle path. The middle way has its virtues, and this has been sufficiently indicated herein. When once the mystic union with the higher self has been obtained and stabilized, which is another matter altogether, then as the sage Abramelin says in his teachings to his son, now at this point I commence to restrict myself in writing, seeing that by the grace of the Lord I have submitted and consigned you unto a master so great. The personal will, dedicated as it has been throughout the magical training to the service of God and man, is now linked with the true will of its higher spirit self. This means that, at least at times, and increasingly so, the magician is impelled and motivated from his own true spiritual nature, and all the technical perfection of the personal self, which has been gained through the magical training, is surrendered to the will of the higher self. All the technical perfection of the personal self, which has been gained through the magical training, is surrendered to the will of the higher self. Then, all the intricate machinery of conditioned reflexes and subconscious capabilities lies under the control of that reigning spiritual self. The outer complexity has been taken inwards, and it is no longer necessary for the arousing of these inner powers. Sacramental talks about something like this as well, putting the physical body under the control of the primitive auto-conscious, if you guys remember that. If anyone has read Sacramental, or if anyone has taken my class about Sacramental. But this is, again, what he's talking about here is the system and the process. You begin training your physical body. And if you attended my cult lecture on Thursday, or if you watched the video, we talked about the soul and the different levels of the soul. Well, what you're doing with the ritual is you're training the animal body. You're training the animal beast into a man or a woman, into a human. You're training this animal beast into a human. And once you've gotten these habits developed, because by the way, they are not inherent, they're not given. Humanity is something cultivated, not inherent. Because the animal body itself is its own entity, just like the human mind is its own entity. And then finally, the God soul is its own entity. What we're attempting to do is to connect all those things together, connect them all together. So through the process of ritual, through the process of practice repeatedly, you're training this human body into a state of discipline, right? A state of discipline. And what happens when you make this connection is that you sublimate that. What he's really saying here is you bring this down into the subconscious mind, so that it transforms you on such a fundamental level you don't have to try to do it anymore. It becomes who you are. Once you make that connection with the higher self, it's reaching up and a reaching down. Not only does this new aspect of your very own spirit begin to expand and you become aware of it, not only that, but your body now has evolved. Your body has now evolved from being more than just an animal. The outer complexity has been taken inwards, and it is no longer necessary for the arousing of the inner powers. So, in the great mysteries, the abyss is past, and the personal man is reborn in eternity. So when we talk about the abyss, that is the separation between the animal man, the animal soul, the nefesh, right? And the higher elements. The higher elements. Look at how this all connects and makes sense. How far this result is due to his own efforts, how far it is due to the efforts of his spiritual self, and the meditation or the mediation of the indwelling Christ is outside the scope of this book. But we may repeat the Kabbalistic statement that it, Malkuth, the kingdom, causes an influence to emanate from the Prince of Countenances, the Angel of Kether, which is the highest sphere on the Tree of Life. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. Gotta love it. Got to love it. This consummation will bring to the magician that true and harmoniously balanced consciousness, which is the true ideal towards which the whole creation is striving. That union, look, all of creation is trying to get this done. But we just so happen to be in a very unique position to be able to do this work, right? Grateful to even be able to have the option to do this work, because most people don't. Most people don't. Not in this lifetime. Not in this lifetime. So it says the consummation of the highest self and the lowest self will bring to the magician that true and harmoniously balanced consciousness, which is the true ideal towards which the whole creation is striving, that union with and response to the divine will. Of this union, the blessed souls in paradise spoke truly to Dante when they told him, "In his will is our peace." So may it be in the days to come with those of my readers who, having set out on this magical journey, have by the grace of the Eternal obtained these things. Wow. Okay, we got one chapter to go. I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good. Thank you for your donations on Cash App. I appreciate you. The computer fund is on its way, and I'll be back up rolling in no time. Watch and believe. Before the end of this month, most certainly. So thank you very much. All right, let's get this. L'envoi. Can somebody look up what that means? I believe it's French. L'Envoi. I want to assume it means something about like the end or the conclusion, the wrap up. Y'all all right? You about to get into the real funky shit. Shut Shout out to Bobby Hammett. Shout out to Brother Panic. Let's do it. L'Envoy, chapter 22. 22 paths, 10 Sephirah. I think somebody did this on purpose. Our labors are ended and the work is done. Perhaps it may be of value if we briefly summarize what has been given. First of all, our intention has been to write on the subject in such a way as to give the essentials of the magic art, and to give them in such a way that the sincere seeker might safely begin his labors in this field. At the same time, although we have not left out any essential principles, we have so written that only the really earnest seeker will realize the full value of this book, right? And only the really earnest seeker will realize the full value of the occult at all, right? And I'm learning and growing to not look down on people based on what they're capable of understanding. Some people are here just to get the entertainment aspect because that's what they can handle right now. And that's great because it plants seeds for later when they evolve and expand to be able to put what they've learned into practice. Whereas others are already practicing. And really they're just in the energy of this style of teaching, waiting for a seed to be planted that will unlock something that they've been working on, right? That's what I find myself doing often. And it mostly comes from unexpected places. In any case, the really earnest seeker will realize the full value of this book. Those who are familiar with the magical art, and more particularly those who are initiates of the various esoteric magical schools, may think that we have given out some things which should not have been given out. That's why the price of this book is hiked up to infinity. It's probably where these bots are coming from too. This is a valid criticism. Though we have high authority for doing this, there is nothing hidden that shall not be revealed. There is nothing hidden that shall not be revealed. Much of the prejudice against the subject arises from the foolish and unworthy secrecy maintained by many of the chiefs of the magical orders, a secrecy mainly designed to foster the self-aggrandizement of the people concerned. For this reason, we have endeavored to give the magical essentials in such a way that the sincere aspirant may make a start with the matter. As he increases in his proficiency, so his deeper understanding of the principles will reveal new depths of meaning. Until when he makes conscious contact with his true spiritual self, he finds the real teacher who will lead him into the paths of peace. We have indicated that the higher ranges of magic are for the most part for those who are truly born magicians, right? And we have stressed this point to avoid giving our readers an unduly optimistic view of the work required. At the same time, it should be borne in mind that much of what might be termed the minor arcana lies open to all in varying degrees. Perseverance in this lesser magical field will prepare the aspirant for the greater work that lies ahead. We may say that such minor magic is the magical equivalent of the 5-finger exercises so painfully gone through by many of us in the past. It may be well if at this point we say that one of the essential principles of magic is that man is part of and one with nature. That he is truly the microcosm of the macrocosm. The little universe in and part of the greater universe around him. Because of this, his action on all levels of being, physical, emotional, mental, and supramental, affects his environment. And this, in its turn, coordinates his life in the physical. Because of this mystical interplay between man and his environment, magic becomes possible, since by our definition, magic is the art of producing changes in consciousness at will. What is magic? Magic is the art of producing changes in what? In consciousness. When? At will. If we change our consciousness, then we act directly upon the inner worlds around us, and thus, ultimately, upon the objective world. Here is one of the keys. In magical work, all is done, in actuality, by the action of the conscious mind upon the subconscious, both personal and collective. The objective conscious mind provides the igniting spark, which throws into motion the subconscious machinery. And it is the reaction between the personal unconscious and the universal unconscious that causes the manifestations of magic. Thus, we come to the use of technical devices, such as the flashing colors, the Tatvik exercises, and the visualizing work, all designed to train the mind along certain lines, and to make it a matter of acquired skill to bring about a willed dissociation of consciousness as a commencement of the work that eventually leads to the willed integration, which is the goal of both magic and religion. Willed integration, we talked about that 2 pages ago. The uniting of the holy guardian angel and the lower self. Yoga, that's what yoga means. Union, yoking, linking the lower and the higher, the inner and the outer. That's literally the goal of all religion, of all spirituality, especially magic. Especially magic. Throughout this book, the cardinal principle has been to lead the aspirant to the realization that true magic brings one into conscious union with the indwelling self, the God within. And though the practice of the magical arts may stop at some point, perhaps remote from this, yet in the end, the aspirant will find an inner compulsion to complete the journey and find his true peace. The general details which have not been included, owing to lack of space, will be found in the books dealt with in the bibliography at the end. From these can be obtained the detailed rituals, but it should always be remembered that such rituals were built upon the principles here laid down. As we have said, it is within the power of the individual worker to build such rituals himself. And if they are built up upon sound principles, they will work. We have tried also to show the stages of psychological and ethical training required of the aspirant, and we have also indicated how all the outer complexity of ritual and ceremonial is in the end subsumed into the inner temple of the heart and becomes part of the automatic mental machinery by the use of which the personality makes its contact with the divine nature. Oh, wow. Thus, Iamblicus in the Mysteries truly says, from supplication, we are in a short time led to the object of supplication, acquire its similitude from intimate converse, and gradually obtain divine perfection. If it is thought that this book is somewhat discursive and uncoordinated, the writer cheerfully agrees that this does appear to be the case. But it was done with the intention, and underlying the apparent lack of coordination, there is a true plan upon which it has been constructed. This plan is, however, based upon the psychological laws governing the subconscious aspect of the mind. We have written to instruct the conscious mind of the reader and to influence his subconscious, following the methods of training used in the schools of the Kabbalah. Finally, we would say to the reader, A way is herein shown forth, by which you may pass from darkness into light, and this book, however imperfectly, indicates the stages of that way, passing from darkness into light, and is the result of our own personal experience. We testify to that which we have seen, and we speak that which we do know. That this may also be true of some, at least of those of you who read, herein is our sincere wish. What a great text. I mean, literally. He mentioned the different aspects of magic and the occult, what they meant, how they affect you on a conscious and a subconscious way, and how to go about integrating it into your actual physical personal life. You don't find that in too many books. Many books might tell you about something and might give you some, I don't know, examples that are very generic. But this is one of the very few authors who truly knows what he's talking about from experience and from study, and is able to convey that in his words in such a way that's very warm, right? The writing style is very warm, very personal, very human. It isn't like an authority dictating and telling you what it should be. It's very natural. Very natural. A wonderful book. Now, as I said, we've already read part 1. This book was part 2. Now we're getting into part 3, Apprenticed to Magic. Same author, but this is the conclusion of this trilogy. So right now, if you're sitting down, get up and stretch a little bit. I mean, if you're driving, obviously you don't, but inhale, take a deep breath, and appreciate the fact that you have just read an entire book. One that is not very easy to come by. And if you've been here for a while, you've read 2 books of this series. And if you stick around, we're going to go through the 3rd book of this series. So yeah, congratulate yourself, because you are actively involved in your spiritual occult education. Awesome possum. Awesome possum. Okay, so maybe we'll read Appendix A. I guess we can do that because, we were talking about fundamental exercises. But here's what's after that book, right? The book's finished. The first appendix is relaxation and breathing exercises, where he talks about, how to do those. Next, he talks about the banishing ritual in the second appendix. This is a very, very popular ritual, if not the most popular in these occult circles, right? He gives you the breakdown on that. I don't think I'm going to go through that because, you should know how to do that. You should have done this plenty of times by now. If not, there's a million videos and books about that. But as far as like a student who's got this book and doesn't have the internet, he's giving you what's needed to know. And of course, the exercises of the middle pillar. This is all over the place as well. I've even got a guided meditation of the middle pillar on my YouTube channel. It's called The Pillar of Power. You can check that out. You should have also seen this in Basic Magic by Philip Cooper, also The Magician by Philip Cooper. So these are 3 of the most popular, right? The most popular rituals. You got the relaxation and breathing, Dharana Darshan style. You got the banishing ritual, right? And then, of course, you've got the middle pillar exercises. Hey, by the way, go ahead and hit the like button if you enjoy this type of content, if you learned something, if you want to see more of it. Hit the like button. It looks like we have less than 50% of likes compared to the people that are here. I know there's a few trolls, but there cannot be 50% of trolls. Bibliography, he talks about different books where you can get more of the rituals. He lists The Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie. He lists The Tree of Life and The Middle Pillar, also by Israel Regardie. The Art of True Healing. I have all those. He also talks about Dion Fortune, the mystical Kabbalah, right? He says Dion Fortune has, to her credit, what is possibly the finest book of Kabbalistic exegesis ever written, right? And I agree with that. I have not seen a better Kabbalah book than the mystical Kabbalah. And I've read quite a few. Just something about it is perfect. And of course, from her, he also has the esoteric orders and their work, the training and work of an initiate, the esoteric philosophy of love and marriage, sane occultism, psychic self-defense. He says psychic self-defense is particularly recommended by the present writer, who knew fairly intimately many of the people mentioned therein. Yeah, so if you want some backstory type stuff, if you do read Psychic Self-Defense, she actually mentions this author and some experiences that they've gone through. I have all those books. I would even recommend The Circuit of Force by Dion Fortune. That's a great one as well. Jay Baldhale says, a girl I know became Christian as fuck after reading The Magician. How? What happened? What scared that girl? That's funny. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Right, so I think we're good to go. We have completed this text, and you can expect next week this train is moving on to the next. That's how we do it. And that's how we've done it for years and years and years. And that's how we will do it. How we will continue to do it. All right, so any questions, any comments, anything like that? Sunshine Chick says, thanks for being ever so calm despite all the trolls today. I mean, to be honest, this wasn't even like anything. They're coming weak, extremely weak. I'd expect it to be something that would make sense. It's almost like it's like a 15-year-old kid with a bunch of accounts trying to say, I don't know, something. Like, they keep coming in with the same stuff. Is this the Bible? What book is this? You have a unicorn pin. Gay. Like, I mean, I couldn't muster a reaction out of that if I tried. I mean, I'll muster the block button just because there's people here who are trying to, focus. But if their intention is to get a rise out of me, that's never going to happen. But if their intention is to distract everyone else, that's why I'm extra grateful to have you beautiful, wonderful moderators. I'm going to have to give y'all a name, right? You've officially become... the diamond encrusted fist. Yeah, we'll think of a cool ass name. Oh, and not just girls, right? We got Al Dickey, we got Framestar Films, we got a couple of mods here. Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. All right, so I think that's it. Once again, we are going to return next week, same time, same place. Apprenticed to Magic, W.E. Butler. Apprenticed to Magic. This is the third and final installment. Third and final installment. I got lucky, right? I was able to snag this thing at $50. So what's the percentage? If it's $50 now and it was originally $4.50, what's the percentage that it went up? All right, that's that. You'll see me again this week with another tarot reading. Hell, we might do two. Depends on what the spirit is talking about. I can feel that things are coming back together. So hopefully you're feeling that too. I know that a lot of us have gone through a very rough past couple of months. For some of us, nothing really happened. It's just an inner feeling of, I don't know how to describe it, you know. But things have been kind of rough for a lot of us. I think it definitely had to do with the shifting of Pluto into Aquarius, right? Out of a very heavy, slow, earthy sign into a fixed air sign, right? So the energy is completely, totally different. Some of us have taken some time to get acquainted with that. And what we find also is that some people who are a little bit more advanced, they start feeling these things before the general public does. So I know that, you know, things have been a bit uncomfortable past couple of months. But I can say with certainty that ice is starting to melt, right? That turbulence is starting to even out, to smooth out. And whatever manifested during that time, it was karmic, right? It was supposed to happen as far as being in alignment with your growth. So if you're thinking that, you know, maybe your magic ain't working anymore, or you fell off track, or you're cursed and hexed or whatever, throw all that out of your head, because that's not true, right? Everything that lives goes through a season of rest, through a season of slowing down, through a season of tamas. On the last live stream, we talked about the three expressions of consciousness: Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas, right? Generator, operator, destroyer. No matter what, you have to go through those three phases at some point. And they may be short, they may be long, but it's not necessarily because you did something bad, right? It's not because you did something incorrect. It's also not because you lost something. For a while, I was starting to rack my brain, like, what did I do? You know, maybe I lost it. Maybe I'm just, you know, pretending it's not here anymore. But the fact of the matter is, these things sleep and they wake again. And they sleep and they wake again. And what happens during sleep? You regain your strength, you recharge, right? You rest up for the next season. Perhaps you needed this slow season to prepare for the coming fast season. So, in any case, stay on task, keep doing the work. Even if it's at your bare minimum, even if you can only meditate for 5 minutes, right? Keep doing something until you work yourself back up to where you're supposed to be. Your soul knows. Your higher self knows. You gotta discipline that animal body. Maybe this was a chance for the animal body, the animal soul, to really show how mature it has been, how mature it's become, right? Don't look for somebody to blame. Don't look for something to blame. Just to understand that seasons and cycles are part of life, and it was rough, but it will not last forever. In fact, it's already 75% of the way done, if not 80. Rapsophones, peace. All right, everybody, I'm out. This has been a great live reading session. Do your breathing exercises. Maintain steadiness of your body, willed steadiness and stillness of the body. Read Durana Darshan. They've got plenty of exercises in there. You already know what to do. Everybody here, I've seen these names before. I've seen y'all before. We know each other. Y'all know what to do. Y'all know what to do. Now just do it. All right? This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you all. Peace.